Please join me in welcoming Elizabeth Reed, the Immune Toolbox. The Immune Toolbox, Elizabeth Reed.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. I have been a clinical nutritionist and a personal trainer and an exercise specialist, respectively, for 17 and 25 years. Additionally, I've been an adjunct professor at the University of Bridgeport, where I taught nutrition and exercise, and also biochemistry. While we wait for the scientists to find effective drug treatments and vaccines in the fight against COVID-19, the CDC has given us some really great guidelines for us to follow to protect us. They are wearing a face mask, washing our hands, cleaning surfaces frequently, and also social distancing. But what they're not telling us are things that we can do that shore up our immune system, that we can do simply by making some very small lifestyle changes so that we can protect ourselves. Madam Contest Master, fellow Toastmasters, distinguished guests, and contestants. At the end of this presentation, you will have three tools put into your brand new immune toolbox that you can use in order to protect your body against getting sick. Those three tools are exercise, hydration, and immune building foods that I will provide three of them for you. Let's start with exercise. When we exercise, we build endorphins. What are endorphins? Endorphins make happy cells. Yes, and happy cells don't get sick as fast as cells that aren't happy. In addition to that, we breathe deeply. We breathe all the way through the base of our lungs. And by doing that, any pathogens that have flown into our lungs that we've inhaled can be pushed back out to keep us healthy. Now, it's beautiful outside. Get outside, get fresh air, walk, run, play a sport. Just get outside and breathe deeply to clean out your lungs. Now, there may be some of you out there that say, I can't do that because I have a bad hip or a bad knee. But I have a solution for you. Get a great big stability ball. And if you don't feel safe doing it in the middle of the room, put it in the corner of your room and bounce. It is so much fun. You can enjoy exercise and at the same time, get fresh air and expand your lungs to clean them out. Now, I do have to give you one warning, and that warning is, please don't eat before you bounce. Wait until after you're done. 2, hydration. Hydration is very important because our largest organ that protects us against any types of bacteria and pathogens happens to be our skin. Now, included in that are our mucous membranes that are in our eyes, our nose, our mouth, and in our throat. When that mucous membrane is compromised from you being dehydrated, it makes it very easy for bacteria and viruses to actually bore into your skin and to plant themselves and to nest and to grow. So simply by adding water through the course of your day, put a pitcher of water on your desk and drink through the course of the day will help you to stay hydrated. Choose some foods that are high in water content, like fruits and vegetables. But I'll let you in on a really big secret that most people don't know, and that's that if you drink fluids while you eat, the fluid stays in your body longer without passing through very quickly because it's used in the digestion process. And therefore, it'll save you quite a few of those pesky extra trips that you would normally make when you drink water to the restroom. 3, foods. Hippocrates, 2,500 years ago, made a statement that food is medicine. And food is medicine. A lot of times we don't think about that. But as far as the healthcare profession is concerned, and scientists, even today, we do recognize that as the golden rule. I will be presenting 3 foods to prove this point. Ready? First food is coconut oil. That's right. Most of us only think about coconut oil, that it helps us with our brain health, but it also helps us to suppress viruses and bacteria from our system. All you have to do is simply make a lifestyle change of switching one of your regular oils out of your daily cooking and adding coconut oil instead. And that will be enough to actually help your immune system. The next one is garlic. That's right. Garlic is one of the best antibacterial and antiviral foods that are on the market today. And it's available almost everywhere. In addition to that, it has a side benefit. It will help you with your social distancing without you even thinking about it. The more you eat, the more you'll social distance, and the healthier you'll be. The last food, the third one, is mushrooms. Mushrooms, all mushrooms. Wait a minute, I shouldn't say that, because there is one exception to the mushrooms, and that's the magic mushrooms with the hallucinogenic qualities is not in this group, but all other mushrooms are. And those mushrooms help to build your white blood cells in your body that actually help to eat bacteria and viruses and protect you. But there are 3 particular mushrooms that are even better than just eating regular mushrooms, because not only do they help you with building your immune system with the white blood cells, they also have another quality. They prevent viruses from multiplying. Now think about that. If you can prevent a virus from multiplying once it gets into your system, that is a real bonus. There are 3 Japanese mushrooms: mitake, shiitake, and reishi. I'm going to repeat that. Mitake, shiitake, and reiki. I will put that into the chat after this talk so that you can remember them. Remember, shiitake, mitake, and reishi. Now, there are many more foods that you can add into your immune tool chest. But what I'd like you to think about is to do some research. Add to this and personalize what this toolbox is going to be. Remember, you can stay healthy during this pandemic if you simply make a few lifestyle changes. So keep in mind to practice the CDC guidelines. Make sure that you exercise, you hydrate, and you include immune boosting foods so that you can make your food as medicine. Madam Contest Master.
Contestant number 1, Rajasekar Narayanan. Rajasekar Narayanan.
How many of you thought this purely as an informative speech? Ms. Contest Chair, Mr. Contest Master, fellow guests who have joined online in Facebook and overall, and the speaker. What a beautiful way to share the information, not just information, but persuade us to do something especially relevant to this particular situation. Since she brought a quote from 2,500 years ago, I'm going to bring a quote from Aristotle, who said, for a persuasive speech, you should have ethos, pathos, and logos. If you do these 3 things, then you can persuade anybody. First, ethos. Ethos means credibility. She said right off the bat, this is what I do for 17 and 25 years, that I am a credible person to share this information because I've been practicing nutrition and I've been practicing exercises. So I am a credible. She took off of the bat that credibility is being checked completely. And what a beautiful way to talk about all the gestures, very prominent gestures. 3 things. 1, exercise, hydration, and food. And again, going back again and again, this ensures that she is very knowledgeable of that subject which she's talking about, and she doesn't have to hesitate. And More importantly, when you're sharing information, this is something we learned through this evaluation is when you're sharing information, if you pause, it lets you or the audience to absorb the information. And that was done beautifully by pausing after she gave every information, she paused so it let it sink in. And the gestures such as social distancing, it was consistent throughout, at least 3 times, social distancing, social distancing. And that was very deliberately done to share the information. That also shows that she's a credible speaker. Now, one thing we have to be careful with the gestures is if you want to avoid using the same gestures for 2 different things. So you use the gestures for hydration, nutrition, and food, but you use the same gestures again when you went into food, when you talked about mushrooms. I would use a different gesture. So I'm not being distracted with twice using the same gestures of the same information. Next, pathos. Pathos is when you evoke emotions. When you evoke emotions, you will able to see, will able to persuade the users better. I wish you told us a story saying, what made you to move this? Maybe a first responder told you, I wish all of us took some first aid measures to do something. Maybe you could avoid less information and brought in a story that will evoke emotions that will help us to move and start doing these 3 things you said. And the last thing is logos, your logic, a beautiful logic of clearly hydration, nutrition, and food, and the way you put the organization helped your logic better. I truly wish you record the speech and share it in social media or everywhere so we can all learn, not just us, so the rest of the world can learn and benefit from the information. Ms. Contest Chair.
Contestant number 2, Anne Mulligan. Anne Mulligan.
Thank you, Contest Master. And Elizabeth, what an amazing speech, and especially for these times we're living in. I think that your title was a great visual image. The whole idea of a toolbox just brings to mind very useful items, and it's concrete. It gives us a sense there's something we really can do about this. You started out by listing your qualifications, which was excellent because it gave you credibility. We got the impression that you're not just somebody off the street who's spouting ideas. Clearly, you're qualified. You were very approachable in the way you did this. It's a very serious subject. It can be scary, but your manner has a brightness to it that I think really helps you. As my pal Dave Pelland likes to say, one of the great things you did was you told us, you told us, you told us. You told us what you were going to say, you said it, and you wrapped it up by telling us what you had told us. I think that your advice was good for really any time, in or out of this pandemic. Of course, you're a very polished speaker. Your vocal variety and gestures were very, very comfortable. And you had a great amount of enthusiasm, which was comforting in a way. You talked about Hippocrates, and there was a real gravitas to that, which added to the quality. The whole food is medicine idea was excellent. You talked about coconut oil. I was kind of wondering, though, if you might have given us some other options, because coconut oil does have an environmental impact. Garlic and mushrooms you added for some great humor. That was really helpful. That always makes things more memorable. Now, there are a couple of things that I might have added differently. Maybe talk a little bit about the psychological impact of all of this isolation. People are getting very depressed and stir crazy. And maybe some visual aids, maybe a real toolbox, a glass of water, that exercise ball that you had mentioned, and some of those mushrooms. We know what they look like. But all in all, I think you gave us a really strong call to action. You left us inspired and invigorated, and I think we're all going to be making some changes based on what you told us. So thank you very much for your speech, Elizabeth.
Hunt. Heather Hunt.
Fellow Toastmasters and guests, we all can appreciate a really well-organized speech, and that is what we heard today. Right off the bat, Elizabeth established credibility with all of us by talking about exercise and nutrition specialty. She also referenced the CDC guidelines. The main reason that we've all been focusing on this pandemic is making sure we follow those CDC guidelines. And that was a fantastic way to open up and to get us organized and prepared. Elizabeth transitioned in what I think is the best way possible, because she explained in a very visual fashion 3 tools we could use for a toolbox. Those were a fantastic way to give us clarity and tools that we can use in order to better prepare ourselves for the pandemic that we're in. And what I want to point out is that she did this at a 5th grade level. And I mean that out of pure respect, because with all that's going on with this pandemic, it's been so important to bring clarity and a very simple meaning to the small things that we can do to better ourselves and to refocus on the things that we can do to keep ourselves safe. We feel so acutely aware in this pandemic of all the things that are going on. So by laying out that exercise, hydration, and that immune building were the 3 things that we could do to better ourselves was fantastic. And she gave a clear explanation of all of those. What I want to point out that Elizabeth did, and what many speeches fail to do at some point, is that they don't address the excuses. And Elizabeth did this. One of the things is that we speak to make sure that people employ, but we don't recognize those things that may be holding people back, such as physical limitations. She did this by making sure that we connected with, if we had an ability that we could not overcome, there was still things we could do to keep ourselves safe and healthy. One of the small things that I noticed that I really think could have just brought a small piece of clarity was Elizabeth switched from the tool chest to toolbox. Making sure that we have just a small consistent message of toolbox was a simple clarification for me. Secondly, when I hear a speaker, I love to see eye contact. You did such a great job with that on camera. However, I couldn't see both eyes all the time. Making sure that you just clip back your hair would be an excellent way to make sure we could keep that eye contact. Finally, an address of social distancing versus physical distancing. Elizabeth, making sure that we address in this time and in conclusion that we have a social connection versus a physical connection would have been a great way to conclude your speech. Thank you very much.
Contestant 4, Roberto Matamoros. Roberto Matamoros.
Never has immunity ever been so integral as of now. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. What an extraordinary speech delivered by Elizabeth. That was simply amazing, as depicted by her extraordinary body language. You could see that she was really active in this speech. Did you see when she spoke about us incorporating these techniques, she moved her hands toward herself. When she talked about cleaning surfaces, that was interesting. I've never seen that before. You actually clean surfaces like this. Or when she also talked about boring skin, I have not seen this expression before. That was a great example. Well done. And although that was extraordinary body language, there are 2 additional things you can do to improve your speech. Now, although you were very active and that was great, we could feel your positive energy, Elizabeth. Something that could help and something that applies to everyone too, is to just maintain our physical poise. During some parts of the speech, I noticed that you were actually like moving back and forth and maybe a little to the side. That was a bit disorienting to me. It could have been more effective if you just maintained a solid posture. And it's totally understandable that maybe in a video conferencing setup, this can tire yourself a little. But in a physical environment where you have a wide audience, it could be helpful to look at one audience here, look at one part of the audience here, and the other here. Next up is timing. I noticed that the red card came up, and you're at your last point before entering a conclusion, and you were talking about mushrooms, the 3 types of mushrooms. I think as soon as the red card came up, it would have been more safer just to end that point and head to the conclusion. And it was great that you wanted to take the time to talk about all your points of conclusion, but I think it might have been better if you just concluded it with, okay, just remember to exercise, better your diet, and to social distance yourself. So just a concise 3 points, and thank you for your time. It was a wonderfully composed speech, Elizabeth. I mean, we all thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you, everyone.
Contestant 5, Laura Amodeo. Laura Amodeo.
Madam Contest Master, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests who may be joining us on Facebook Live, and especially to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, thank you so much for providing such an informative and timely speech today. If I could start off on commenting on the content of your speech, I thought that it had a really great flow. You started off by sharing with us some of your credentials, which really captured the audience and made us listen, because it showed that you were certainly qualified to be providing guidance on this topic. You then spoke a little bit about some of the CDC guidances that have been publicized and stressed the importance of following those. And then your main focus was to introduce 3 things that we could introduce into our day-to-day life to continue to protect ourselves from getting the COVID-19 virus. Those were staying hydrated, exercise, and introducing nutritious foods such as coconut oil, garlic, and mushrooms. Your intention was to convince us to add in those healthy habits, and I thought you did a really great job in explaining why that was so important and why those specific things would be helpful in protecting us from acquiring the virus. If I could suggest one potential improvement for your speech, would be to leverage the sense of urgency. COVID-19 is a terrible virus, and I think by stressing and highlighting that point a little bit more, it could add some sense of urgency to really help to convince the audience to take action more urgently. Your delivery of the speech was also very exceptional. Over the last few months, as we have been in a shelter-in-place environment, I've seen a number of Zoom presentations, and I have to say that yours was one of the best. You did a number of things that I think really helped to engage your audience and keep the intention. So, first of all, your eye contact was great. I think that's maybe the easiest of the things, to look into the camera. But you not only maintained eye contact, but you also introduced body language to really engage the audience. So when you talked about breathing, you breathed in your breath and you used your hand to emphasize that. You also would occasionally lean into the camera to really emphasize, and then lean back. Aside from the body language, I thought it was excellent that you also offered to type into the chat some of the more complicated names of mushrooms so that the audience could really remember them. All in all, you did a really excellent job in presenting this speech. I, for one, will be adding garlic, coconut oil, and mushrooms to my shopping list, so thank you very much for sharing it.
Contestant number 6, James Virnelli III. James Virnelli III.
The Immune Toolbox. Contest master, functionaries, fellow Toastmasters, guests, and most importantly, Elizabeth. Today it is my role and my privilege to evaluate Elizabeth's speech, which right out of the gate is very situation appropriate, but beyond that is empowering, because I think the largest challenge we face beyond this epidemic that is currently impacting the whole world is a sense of helplessness. What can I do? And right out of the gate, Elizabeth identifies that need that we all have to do something, anything, to help mitigate this fear that we fear of this contagion. Out of the gate, Elizabeth is extremely comfortable with this very challenging virtual platform, something that a lot of people are still really adjusting to, is something that Elizabeth seemed to just jump in and off she went. Beyond that, her speech also featured something really magical, which was very intentional hand gestures. Beyond just counting, it was a mask, it was distancing. There was this range of gestures that weren't just somebody talking with their hands as they go, but very specifically navigating through point by point. So that was very well done. Now, no evaluation would be complete without a challenge or an opportunity to improve. And I must admit, it was challenging just to figure out what that right piece of feedback might be. I think that Elizabeth's speech was extremely well organized. 3 major points, maybe 1 or 2 minor points within each, and she very clearly tied back to her larger structure as she navigated. But her biggest reference point was to the CDC resources. And in order to ensure that people walk away with this knowledge of the different types of mushrooms, the different foods that could be healthy, I would have loved to have seen a reference to something else. Hey, check out this website, and they've got all these exercises you can do and tips around hydration and what foods you can use. Because there was so much information there, and I hate to lose any of it. And so it would be great to have some key takeaway. Here's the resource you need. And finally, the biggest thing is the variations Elizabeth used in tone. It was truly masterful, the way Elizabeth shifted between informational and matter of fact to a more of a challenge. Go outside, get exercise, go do something, to more of a coach and this gentle, hey, listen, if you're gonna bounce, eat afterwards. Don't eat before you bounce. That use of tone really helped draw the line between what type of information was being produced or presented. All that being said, it was a wonderful speech. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you, Madam Contest Master.
Contestant number 7, Chad Babcock. Chad Babcock.
My immune toolbox is now full. Madam Contest Master, fellow Toastmasters and contestants, and especially Elizabeth Reed. Thank you so much for your speech. I thought it was wonderful. And not only that, it's so topical and timely. This is something that we're all so aware of right now. And we have the information. We know about face masks. We know about washing the hands and social distancing. But what you offered us was, what else can we do? And this really grabbed our attention. This is so perfect because this is something that impacts all of us right now. And maybe that we're looking for that additional information that can help us in this time. What I thought you did very, very well is what I consider the 3 Ps. You had great pace. You did not rush through it. It was a very paced out speech, giving us certain information that we're allowed to absorb. You had passion. Not only are you knowledgeable about this topic, you had great passion about it, and we could feel that you were concerned about it, you're interested in it, and you want us to also be interested in it. And poise. You had the perfect position, especially in video, which is new to a lot of us to watch the speech on video. It was just a great setting and very easy to follow. What I liked about the beginning of the speech is you gave us your credibility. You set yourself up to say, I'm a clinical nutritionist and I teach exercise classes, and I'm going to give you some information that's going to be valuable to you. I also enjoyed the fact that it was given to us in a way that was very easy to digest, no pun intended. It was information that we normally might be intimidated about. If I'm one that doesn't exercise or concerned about creating a different type of diet, I might be intimidated by the information that you're given. And you didn't do that at all. You made us feel very comfortable about these are things that can be important to you and things that you can use. When you went through this speech, I would like to offer a couple things that might be some suggestions that you could improve or use to take with you. One thing I really enjoyed was the background. It looked like you're in the kitchen, maybe like a food show. What I think would have been added to this speech of value would be when you brought up the coconut oil, is to bring up, here's the coconut oil that I like to use, or here are some different kinds of mushrooms that you might include in your new diet, or garlic. Here's some garlic, here's how I like to use it in my diet. And bring those visuals in there. Also, when you brought up the exercise ball and don't bounce on it, I think that would have been a nice visual too. Elizabeth, I want to thank you for your speech. I thought it was hugely valuable and you gave us some great actions and appreciate it. Thank you.